So I just wanted to go over the roster right here. Obviously, Rudy Gobert had a resurgent year, as this was a guy who is paired with one of the best defensive players in the league at the perimeter, Jaden McDaniels, who also has grown into one of the best corner three-point shooters. Then they do, from a draft capital standpoint, have a first-round pick in this year's draft, and outside of that, they do have a second rounder, but it's very minimal. It's not like they can go out and just outbid people with capital, and they might be maybe a little bit more of gatekeepers. Julius, Randle, Reid, and Dante DiVincenzo, maybe even Mike Conley, are their only true trade chips I would assume that they have. So from a standpoint, that's kind of like what we're working with, and I think the team is in a flexible position, being above the first apron, but having enough room to get below it, or to still do stuff while remaining in it without having the fear of going over the second, which I think is what they want to avoid. But yeah, let's just get into this video. I want to hear your guys' opinions in the comments. The other thing I wanted to add is we got to find an upgrade for Julius Randle. And the other thing is, the model to build a team is what the Pacers and Thunder did, which is you have one star and then the rest of the team is high level role players who can play both ends of the floor, and you have a second star or two other guys that can help shoulder the load with your one guy. But it all really, you don't need to have all this high-end talent loaded on a roster. Instead, you need to build a competent roster and have 7 or 8 dudes. Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we'll be doing an off-season preview for the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you guys didn't know, I was actually born in St. Louis Park. Grew up outside. I lived in Minnesota and like outside of Chanhassen in this area called Prior Lake. And yeah, where else? Yeah, I guess I lived in Mount for a year, but like Prior Lake. Either way, why are we doing this? Ricky Rubio probably, and Kevin Garnett, probably top 2 guys in terms of role models for me. And I haven't been this ecstatic in terms of a season, besides these past 2 years, since Ricky Rubio's rookie season, which obviously prematurely ended due to a knee injury, and that's a whole other can of worms. That why are we here? We're doing an off-season preview for a team that, stop counting them out when they come up short, is what I'm going to first do as the TLDR. People thought it was radical and insane when they traded for Rudy Gobert. They thought it was insane when they traded away Karl-Anthony Towns. And we've been able to get almost there. Obviously, there are some flaws in this roster. From a draft standpoint, I think it's pretty apparent what we should do if we do keep the picks. I think in this draft, we'd be able to either get a young big man to be a backup who could have some defensive capabilities while maybe having some upside, or a guard or a wing. So I'm thinking somebody along the lines of a Jace Richardson, a Liam McNeely, maybe even an Asa. Is it Asa or Asa? It's Asa, right? Asa Newell, are all guys, or Nick Clifford, Thomas Sorber, all guys I think they should be interested in looking at with their picks at 17. But the rest of the team, what did we see as they closed out their season? This is a squad that offensively is middle of the pack in terms of what they did in the regular season, but their efficiency from 3 is insane. Top 5 3-point shooting team, top half of the league in free throws, middle of the pack in rebounds, bottom half of the league in turnovers. Now, when you went into the postseason, they were a squad that really struggled to turn the ball over and was fouling a lot, and there was times where their offense would stagnate. So we know that Julius Randle and probably DiVincenzo are both guys that might be flipped again. I think Conley could be flipped. They need to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and that's somebody that is a must. I think Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham are all guys that are future role players that they need to consider keeping. With the rest of the roster, they're free agents. They have player options on Reid and Randle. I expect Randle to pick his up. Reid, I wouldn't be surprised if he picks his up and signs an extension, or gets traded and signs an extension with the team he gets traded to. Luka Garza will get picked up. Joe Ingles is retiring. Josh Minot, I think, would be... I think they'd keep him just because he's cheap and he's flashed the potential. This is a team that is going to be at $199 million. The tax threshold is 187.8. The first apron's at just under 196, and the second apron is just under 208 million. So, with that being said, also Bones Highland, Jesse Edwards, and Tristan Newton are all two ways that I expect to bring back. I think Bones will just be converted. They'll have the tax mid-level exception of 5.7. They have the 31st pick as well, which they could wait. They could take like a Cam Jones with that pick. I think that would be the better thing. If you take a Tom Sorber or a Jean Beringer or a Liam McNeely or a Newell, you take Cam Jones or another senior-esque prospect. They'll have the second round pick exception and the veteran minimum. With that being said, yeah, I think Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle and even Reid are their best trade chip. Do you go out and get Kevin Durant because those three combined? Or, yeah, you can actually replace DiVincenzo with Mike Conley, but Mike Conley's the other guy that they might trade. They might just keep him because they don't have another option. However, this is a team that needs another reliable score, and I think everyone's gonna go ahead and be like, oh, Durant. I think Durant's only good if he's your third option. He's an overpaid third option. And I was talking with someone, I was like, the only team that like really makes sense, I've said, is if either Boston or the Nuggets go after him. Like the Nuggets basically flip Michael Porter Jr., Peyton Watson, Zeke Nnaji, and Dario Saric for him, and then he's your third option next to Jamal Murray and Jokic. And then for Boston, you flip Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday for Mr. Kevin Durant, and do that a multi-team trade. And like, you know, that's the whole thing. So then he's like basically being your filler for when Jason Tatum's recovering, and you get cap flexibility because he's an expiring that you could either extend or just let walk. Now, over here for Minnesota, I think he becomes your number two, and I think that's the problem. Like, yeah, it works. I think it could work, and it gives you short-term flexibility, and I think if it's your last resort, that's fine. Personally, I think if we're going to be, like, hunting a guy, I want someone like a Pascal Siakam. Obviously, he's not going to get traded, okay? The Pacers are doing what I think needs to be mimicked. You need 4 two-way guys on the floor at all times. So your number one offense is Anthony Edwards. Then you have Jaden McDaniels. Then you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'd say those are 3 two-way guys. Rudy Gobert kind of is a two-way guy, but we all know the flaw there. So, but like Rudy Gobert, we'll put it there. So you almost have it there. So you have kind of a hole at the power forward position. So you need a two-way power forward, and that's the biggest thing. And I think the rest of the bench can be figured out between Jalen Clark, another two-way guy, in my opinion, Rob Dillingham being kind of like a spark plug. And do we have faith in the rest of the young guys? I personally do. I think we've done a good job with Chris Finch and Tim Conley over here replenishing the roster. Terrence Shannon being the third guy, and then maybe Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Minot. Look, Leonard Miller is a non-restricted free agent, so to me, no, Leonard Miller is still on a normal contract. My apology. But non-guaranteed, I believe. So I think they have young guys now, if you believe they can get. But so if they did a trade, who would also be available? I don't think they want to trade for someone who has not too much short-term, like long-term money. They want cap flexibility. And that's where it does become hard. It becomes hard because you look at this and you think, who would even be available? Because Bradley Beal, not going to move the needle. Paul George, same thing. It's like, it's the money. Zach LaVine could actually be someone they could trade for. And he'd actually fit what they would need. Now, it'd give you another guard who needs the ball in his hand, and it takes away from the whole thing is I'd rather have a power forward than a guard doing what we're discussing. And if Zion was on the block, that's the type of guy you'd like to go after. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be available. And to me, the trade market, you might have to. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis. If you believe you can get him healthy, I'd trade for Kristaps Porzingis. He could be the guy that's available. John Collins, but I think the best player that has value to you that is going to be available is Kristaps Porzingis. He's the two-way guy. Now the question mark is health, but if you believe you can be healthy, you got the person who's going to be able to play both ends of the floor for you right there. Yeah, so Kevin Durant, Kristaps Porzingis are the two that just jump off the page as more than likely going to be available. Now, if I was a betting man, I think it'll be something that we don't even expect. Yeah, I wouldn't go after RJ Barrett. If Jaren Jackson Jr. could be available, that'd be cool, but I don't think he will be. So, yeah, and maybe they sign a free agent like Santi Aldama. Outside of that, I think we touched on everything. So, cheers.